All right, so you have asked me, my love, to teach you how to make cherry pie because you know that cherry pie is my favorite pie and it is not your favorite pie, but you want to be able to make me my favorite pie, which makes me love you even more. So I'm going to show you my cherry pie. Disc of dough. You know I always keep pie dough. Every time I make pie dough, I do a couple discs. So you will often find this on the door of the freezer if you need it. So I just thawed that overnight in the fridge. And I am just going to flour the dough.
Okay, but if there's not a dough in the freezer, this is your basic dough? There's nothing fancy about this?
If there's not dough in the freezer because we've been making a lot of pie, then this is the same dough. This is the same pie crust like your mom taught you how to make. It's just butter and flour and salt and really cold water.
Right.
It's just like the one that you make when you do your mom's peahick pie.
Okay.
Okay, so I got the dough floured. I'm gonna tap it off. It's still really cold. And then I'm just gonna roll it out. Really slowly, gently. You have made pie. I don't need to tell you too much about that, but I very much appreciate that you wanna learn how to make this cherry pie. Why is it you don't like cherry pie?
I think I don't like the lattice.
Oh, well, that's the good news is that I don't do a lattice because that's really fussy and it extends the amount of time between making pie and eating pie. So this is a one crust and it's more like a galette. So we're still gonna do it in a pie tin, but we're gonna do, it's like a hybrid. So we're gonna do it, I'm gonna put the filling in the middle and then I'm just gonna fold the edges up and around. So you get a little bit of top crust, but the cherries are still poking out in the middle, and then you don't have to do with all the fussy lattice work. You know how to do this, but I'm just starting in the middle and just rolling, and I'm just turning every quarter turn because that's gonna keep it round, which really is all you care about for this bottom crust, is that it stays pretty round.
Well, I think my issue is what I'm noticing, you're not going to the edges. And I think what happened is I would go to the edges and kind of mash it.
No, so here's the key, and you know, because you live with me, I do not make a tremendous number of pies. I'm starting to stick a little bit, so I'm just gonna get a little bit of that under there.
All right, you can just feel that?
Yeah, because our counter is a really good counter for doing stuff, but you can start to feel, when I go to turn it, it should turn really smoothly, and if it starts to feel like it's catching a little bit, then I just stop. Anyway, yeah, so you don't go to the edge because if you roll, like if I roll all the way off here,
right,
it's gonna make this super duper thin and like stick it to the counter.
That's
so I just start in the middle and just roll one way and then turn and start in the middle and roll one way. And what happens is as you do that, it just gets really even.
And how thick do you want that to end up?
I don't want a ton of crust. Right now, the middle of this feels like the right thickness, right? It's probably like maybe 1/4 of an inch, which will give a sturdy bottom. But because we're gonna fold it up over the top, I'm gonna now start rolling. I'm gonna leave this part in the middle thicker, and I'm just gonna start rolling from there out so that the outer part gets a little bit thinner, because when we fold it and crimp it together, it's gonna fold over on itself, and then you don't want big blobs of dough because then they may not cook in the middle.
I do not want the dread soggy bottom.
Well, you do. Okay, so
please save me from the soggy bottom.
From the soggy bottom. Okay, so the soggy bottom problem, which because we watched Great British Baking Show all the time, we know about the soggy bottom. See, that's starting to stick. So I'm gonna flour this. I'm gonna do a little on here. So I've got the oven preheating. This pie I do like 375, but I've got a pan in there, the sheet pan, because as you know, since I put you in charge of cleaning the oven, you do not want sticky cherry juice all over the bottom of the oven.
We are in agreement on that, yes.
But the other thing is by putting the sheet pan that's gonna catch all that stickiness, God forbid it overflows, you're preheating it, and then you'll be able to catch drips, but also it prevents the soggy bottom because you're putting the pie thing on a hot pan. So it's sort of pre-cooked. So that is like, you can't really see, but there's a circle right in the middle. It's a little thicker and then it's thinner around the edge, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna brush my super fancy.
I was wondering what that was for. You look like you're gonna
I bought it in Paris. It's technically for brushing off croissants, but we're gonna use it for pie because that's what I got.
Of course, the French.
Of course, the French. The French come up with the best tools for everything, as we know. So we're gonna fold it that way. I'm gonna brush it off. I'm gonna flip it up. This is a pretty forgiving dough. This actually might be your grandmother's recipe.
Well, if it was my mom's, it was my grandmother's.
Right. So you've got your little triangle, right? And then you just put the point in the middle and you unfold it. And then you unfold it this way. And you're really just gonna pick it up and let it fall. You don't want to press because you don't want a hole because then you get sticky filling. You're gonna press the crust into the pan, just letting it fall like that, right?
Got it.
Okay, so here's the most important part, any pie. You have to chill this because right now it's gotten really soft from being out, and if you try to bake it right away, all the butter is just gonna fly out of the crust and it's gonna get really dry and brittle and it's not gonna be good. So we're gonna take this and we're gonna put it back in the fridge and then we're gonna come back in like half an hour and I'm gonna finish teaching you this pie.
Okay.
Okay, chilled pie crust. This is frozen tart cherries. Just buy them at the grocery store. I usually have some in the freezer. I'm gonna add sugar. It's like a cup of sugar, 1.5 pounds of cherries. This is cherry bounce. A lot of the pie recipes use kirsch, which is a cherry flavor, like a brandy, but you're from Kentucky and this is whiskey and that seems like a better idea. It's just a 1/2 teaspoon. So this is my super top secret thing. These are dried cherries. It's like 1/3 of a cup. It's not a ton, but here's the problem with fruit pies. The fruit cooks and then the juices come out, and even though we're gonna put a thickener in it, sometimes it's still a little too juicy. So for fruit pies, I will usually put a little bit of a dried version of the same fruit in with the fresh fruit, because as the juices leak out, the dried fruit kind of sucks it up and adds a little bit of an extra textural thing, but it helps prevent the soggy bottom problem. This is tapioca flour. I like it better than cornstarch or other things. I think it's a cleaner flavor. I don't like that really claggy, kind of thick, glazy sort of pie filling. So I use tapioca flour, which I like, and it's in the pantry. And then a really good pinch of kosher salt.
So basically, you don't want the Kentucky pie.
It's not that I don't want the Kentucky pie. We're not going to say anything bad about Kentucky. As you know, I love Kentucky. Kentucky gave me you. But I like the pie to really taste like the fruit and just enough thickener and stuff where it's sort of suspended lightly in slightly thickened juices, and it doesn't have that gloopy, like canned pie filling texture. So I'm just mixing all of this up. Super simple. I'm trying to think what else. Always use the tart cherries.
Right. Because
otherwise it just gets too sweet. I don't really like an overly sweet dessert, neither do you. So you got your chilled crust. I'm just gonna dump this right in it. Here's the key. Really use your spatula, because all this stuff in here is like, that's the thickener, all that gloop. You don't want to skip any of that. Get all that in. All right, that's good. And then I put the filling all the way to the edge here, but I leave it a little bit higher in the middle because we're not putting a top crust on or a lattice. And so the cherries are going to naturally kind of seek their way out as it settles. So this will kind of keep it even. So this is the genius of this part, which is you're just kind of going to fold it over on itself. It kind of knows where it wants to go. But this is what prevents the whole top crust latticey problem. Let me see, a little bit of extra flour. I'm gonna flick that off. And I'm doing it in a pie plate because it just contains it and it keeps it round, but you can do it, let's get the end, it gets a little complicated. You can do it on a sheet pan if you want it more like free range galette sort of situation. Okay, so that's good. If you feel like there's too much crust, which I sort of feel like in places there is, you can just kind of trim around a little bit with the scissors in the middle. That's not too bad. Especially if there's places where it's really overlapping a lot, like over here, you don't want it to get too thick. All right, so heavy cream. This is really, you want good browning and crispiness on the outside. I'm not doing a ton. I'm just brushing it on so you get that all over the crust, but also because I like to put coarse raw sugar on top because it makes it sparkly and it makes it pretty and it gives it a little bit of crunchy caramelization once it's baking, and so the cream will help it to stick. I don't like an egg wash. It gets really too brown, I think, and it'll pretend that the pie is cooked before it's actually really fully cooked. Again, soggy bottom problem. This is that really coarse raw sugar. I'm gonna be pretty generous with that just around the crust. So that's gonna make it nice, pretty, get crunchy. Put a little in the middle, because why not? And then you're gonna bake it right into the preheated 375 oven on the preheated pan. This will go about, I don't know, maybe an hour.
All right.
All right. Pie, ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So this has been in for like an hour. Oh, look at that.
It looks delicious.
I'm super happy. We got a little bit of spillage, but that's okay. So we got a nice brown, crispy crust. The sauces are bubbling and they're juicy and thick. And you can see, because it's a glass pie plate, that it's brown, which means no soggy bottom. Now we have to wait till it cools before we can eat it.
All right, so if I make one that looks like a cherry autopsy, you'll still know that it comes from a place of love, right?
If you make me any cherry pie, I'm gonna be really happy, baby.
All right.
There you go, cherry pie.